Good morning, good morning, everybody, rather, or good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar, Ultimate Session Workflow. So the plan is today is to show you a little bit about sessions and how you can speed through it and do some pretty cool selection, rating, culling, and processing, organization all at the same time. If this is your first webinar and you don't know who you're listening to, my name is David. I'm part of the software sales team based out of Copenhagen in Denmark. And as usual, we have 60 minutes today, or a maximum of 60 minutes, I should say. Maybe you will get through it quicker than that. But you're very welcome and encouraged to ask questions throughout. The way you do that, if you look at the bottom of your GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see the last box says questions. Put a question in there, that will come straight through to me. If you are on your Android device or iOS device, look for the question mark icon, tap that, and you can ask the question in the same way. I am recording this too, so you'll be able to watch the recording at a later date, probably sometime tomorrow on our YouTube channel. You'll get a follow-up email probably around lunchtime, and that will have all the information in there. So let us begin. Let's come out and get into Capture One. And just need your questions panel up, and then finally we just need to get our mouse locator working and we shall be good to go. So this will help you locate the mouse from time to time. So what I plan to do today is just go through some of the steps of workflow in a session. I'm going to ask you in a second on a poll if you've ever used a session before, because that will give me some level of indication of if you're casual session users, super expert, or you have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm going to launch a poll now. Very simple question. Have you ever used a session before? Yes or no? For those of you that say no, which I can see is a minority, but still a fairly big minority, we'll go through exactly what a session is. And it's very simple, and it's only going to take me a couple of minutes. So even if you're a session expert, don't worry, because you probably might pick up a couple of tips, and it's going to be pretty brief. So I'm going to close that down, and we'll look at exactly what a session is. So this one we're going to come back to when we start talking about workflow and organizational things. But for the easy part, Capture One 10, I'm going to say File, New Session. And the first dialog that comes up asks us exactly for the name of our session. And a session is basically a visible folder structure with 4 simple folders that are created by default. So let's say I'm going to do a headshot session of a few different people. So just one example. So I'll say headshot here and give it a name. We can place our session wherever we like. By default, it'll go into the pictures folder. If you want to change the location, we can just tap this box and then we can choose wherever we want to put our session. We can put it on an external drive, we can put it on an internal drive, not super important. Best performance, especially if you're shooting tethered, is the internal drive of your laptop. Okay, so let's say OK. And a brand new empty session opens up. And let's right click up the top, nice little shortcut. This shows you my path of the session. So if we right click on the title, and let's see what Capture One has created. So in its most simplistic form, this is a session. The idea is you shoot tethered to the capture folder or import to the capture folder in a very similar way as you would with the catalog. You move selected image to the selects folder, and then you process to the output folder. And any sort of crap that you don't want, you can throw in the trash. Now you'll see these 4 folders, capture, output, selects, trash, have their counterparts shown here in the first tool tab, capture, selects, output, and trash. So these are a shortcut to these various different folders, and you can drag and drop between those folders at any point. Equally, you can drag and drop between folders in the Finder or Windows Explorer, and Capture One will keep up with the changes, which a catalog cannot do. Not just a Capture One catalog, a Lightroom catalog, or any other manufacturer. If you move images around between folders, you have to do some kind of synchronization. Capture One is always watching these folders, and therefore it's automatic. That's the the first huge benefit that we're going to talk about. Now, as I said, this is in its most simplistic form, but let's say we want to expand this out. And as an example, let's make some more capture folders. So let's go for, let's make a new folder, and we call this, say we're doing person number 1. They'd have a name, of course, but let's just call it person 1. Let's make another new folder. Can't type today, it seems. Person 2, and finally, let's make another new folder, person 3. So you can expand a session however you like. Now, by default, Capture One is watching these 4 folders. Capture Output selects trash. If you want Capture One to also monitor other folders and include them in search terms and so on, or filtering as well, or using the search bar down here, what we have to do is pick these up and drag them to session favorites. Now, Capture One will know that these also need to be part of searches that you might carry out. And it also means we have fast access to these various other folders. Last little thing to mention on sessions is that this is a shortcut to the current capture folder. So if I want person 1 to be a capture folder, especially when I start shooting them tethered, I can right click and say set this as the capture folder. And then a little camera icon pops up, and if I was to shoot tethered, images would go straight into person 1. Then if I wanted to shoot to this folder, I could right click and set that as the capture folder, and so on. So if you're a tethered shooter, then I'd strongly suggest watching a previous webinar which really goes through that sort of capture side of workflow. And also John, who was saying he hadn't been able to figure out if catalogs or sessions were good for him. There's also a previous webinar called Catalogs versus Sessions. And actually the webinar the week before last was about combining catalogs and sessions together. So there's lots of content already on the YouTube channel which you can use to really decide what's best for you. But if you shoot tethered, then I think you'd be completely mad to try and shoot tethered to a catalog. It's much easier to shoot tethered to a session. The last thing I'll say about sessions is that it's completely portable. So if I wanted to grab this session and dump it on an external hard drive, copy it across a network elsewhere, I can do that because everything comes with it, images, settings, and so on. Everything is neatly packaged up in one folder. So it's a great system for portability. Much easier than trying to move catalogs around and their accompanying folders and so on. Okay, so I'm going to close this one down and then we're going to return to this bigger session. And you can see there's some more stuff going on here, which we'll get into. If I right click and we look at our path again, I'll show you how this session is made up. Similar principle, we've got a capture folder, but it's been divided into 4 different outfits. So Alex, the model, is wearing 4 different outfits, which you'll see in the middle. And there's an other folder, which is just some random headshots and things like that. Output folder, I'm going to empty out because we're going to do some process later. I've got nothing in selects and nothing in trash. So we've basically just got a capture folder like so. If we go over to Capture One, you can see I've already added these to session favorites. So we can look at Outfit 1, Outfit 2, Outfit 3, and Outfit 4. And the other thing to differentiate between each outfit is that each outfit has a front shot, as you can see. And we have a rear shot, like so, as you can see. And finally, we have a detail shot, like so. And each outfit follows that principle. So front, as you can see, and then rear shot, as you can see, and then a final detail shot like so. So let's think about how we can divide this up into some kind of sensible workflow. And those of you might also have a clue that you can see some color tags floating around. So I'm going to recreate what I've done for the first outfit, and then we're going to build some smart albums for that and show you some rating and selection techniques. Before we do that, this actually relies on you seeing a bit of keyboard shortcut action as well. So I'm going to also share my webcam. Let's hope this works. Webcam should open in a second. Yeah, okay. So you can see my webcam like so, and a relatively tidy desk I can see. And what you're looking at is a Capture One keyboard. It's made by a company called Logic in Denmark. It's available from any Phase One partner. You can use any keyboard with Capture One, and you can design your own keyboard shortcuts. But if you want a kind of a bit of a head start, then this is a good way to do it. But any keyboard, regardless of whether it's Capture One or not, hang on, I'll just pick up another one. You can see it's based on an Apple aluminium USB keyboard, and they just screen print on the top. So there's nothing to stop you using a normal keyboard as well, but I'm going to use this one so you can visually see a bit better how it works. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is for all the front images, we're going to mark them green. So let me scroll down, and we're going to shift click through until we get to the last front image like so. And then on my keyboard, we've got number 7 is set to green. So I'm going to tap that, and that's going to tag everything green. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to find our rear shots, which stops here. And I'm going to tag them red, which is number 9 on my keyboard, like so. And then finally, we're going to go to the detail shots, like so, and we're going to tag them blue. Now, I don't have a blue shortcut set up, nothing to stop you assigning one. And let's go to adjustments, color tag, so you can see where they are. So you can see my shortcuts here, and we can say blue, and then that will add blue to every single image, like so. Yes, it's Mac only, John. I mean, it is USB, so there's no reason why it wouldn't work on a PC, but I guess you've got some non-PC buttons like the command button and so on. But I actually don't see a reason why it wouldn't work on PC, but I haven't tried it myself. So I don't want to say yes, it's guaranteed, but I haven't tried it. Okay, so we've got our greens, reds, and blues, and it would be nice if we could see all of our front shots together. So the first step in this process is that we're going to go over here and we're going to make a smart album. So up on the plus, I can say smart album, and I'm going to call this front shots, like so. So we want all our front shots is anything with a green tag, regardless of which folder it belongs in. Two ways we can make these. We can use a preset over here, and that says color tag is green, or we use the plus buttons to build our search criteria. So let's say OK. And now we've got our smart album here. We can reorder it to something sensible. And front shots now contains green tagged images from every single outfit, like so. So you can imagine I did the same for rear shots. If I edit this smart album, you can simply see that color tag is red. Cancel that out. And the same for our detail shots, like so, which is, you guessed it, edit smart album, color tag is blue. Okay. Let's cancel that out. And the next thing that we're going to do is, let's go to front shots again, is we need to kind of pick the best front shot, like so. So we need to go through and pick the best front shot in each one. Now, I've already done this earlier, so I'm just going to select all. I'm going to clear all my star ratings. I'm just going to hit 0 on the keyboard. So now I don't have anything that's star rated. So what I need to do is go through each of the images and then decide which is the best one of each of these outfits. So a couple of different ways I can do that. We can do it this way. So all I'm doing is using Command on the keyboard, or Control if you're on PC, John, left and right key, where we can move rapidly through the images like so. There's a couple of other handy shortcuts on a full-size keyboard like this where I can go to the first image. So this one here, so if I tap that, that takes me to the first and last image. So I can always get either end of a collection of images. And when I say collection, I mean a smart album like this, or a different album, for example. So that's just an album of one image. So this we refer to as a collection. So I could go through, we could whiz through, we could tap 5 on the keyboard. You see that marks that as 5 stars. And we could go through and we could select in a simple way like that. Now, if you prefer to see all of the images, then of course we can look at browsers only. And if you noticed, on the Logic keyboard set, we use this button at the top, right over here, just below Escape, to hide and show the viewer. So it's a really nice way of moving between the viewer and just seeing thumbnails. So there's nothing to stop you doing your star rating in here if you perhaps had bigger, excuse me, if you perhaps had bigger thumbnails like so. Or we can have smaller thumbnails and use the method that we just mentioned. Now, a popular one to do on Capture One is use a functionality called sets, because this allows us to look at a group of images at a time. So if I shift select, say 4 images, so all I've done is shift select the 4 images, hide my viewer, like so, then we see these 4 images at the same time. If I hide the tools, which is Command T, like so, then all I can see is 4 images on screen. Now this is classed as a Capture One set, because what I can actually do is move through the sets, or move through sets of 4 images or 6 images if I had a big enough monitor, and look at them in a group. So if we go to the Edit menu, you'll see a functionality called Select Next Set, which is Option or Alt key, as you might know it, with the right cursor. So if I hold down Alt over here and then do right cursor, I get the next 4 images, and the next 4, and the next 4, and the next 4. And once I'm in a set, I can then browse through and decide, okay, out of these 4, which is the best one. Now, if you look carefully, we're going to have a problem. Let's say out of these 4, which one do we like? Let's have this one, for example. If I press 5 on my keyboard with the end of my Wacom pen, it's tagged everything with 5 stars. That's not good, because I only wanted to tag this one. So I'm going to press 0 to zero it out again, and introduce you to this funny toggle at the top of the screen, which you probably never really realized what it did. But what it basically does is toggle between applying the action to many or just the currently selected primary variant, like so. So if I turn this off, so it's no longer orange, and I press 5, then we get 5 stars just on this image. So really popular. So now I can go to next set, scroll through, decide, is there any in this set that I like? Not really. Let's go to the next set. Let's grab that one, 5 stars. Next set. Let's take that one, next set. And I'm going to take a few so we can do a third pass. So let's get to my next outfit. Let's grab this one, 5 stars. Let's grab this one, 5 stars. Now, if you want to keep hold of one as a kind of compare variant, we can do that as well. So let's say we want to lock this image to screen. So we've got something we can do on the Enter key called Set Compare Variant. So I'll show you in the menu itself. It's Edit, Set as Compare Variant, Shift Enter. So if I do Shift Enter, like so, then you see this one gets an orange border and a pin, and it will stay locked to this area on the screen. So if I go next set once more, you see I'll get the next 3 up. So let's have a punching one. Let's make that 5 stars. Next set, let's grab that one, and so on. Then if I want to clear this compare variant, all I do is, what is it? I think it's Command and then Enter. Now my compare variant is gone. And now I'm free to go through onto my next set. See, here's a set 3. You might prefer that. So which ones shall I grab? This will be 5 star. Go through. You can always flip-flop back and forth. It's nice and quick. Any of you lamenting perhaps slower performance with other raw converters, you can see I'm moving through images nice and quick. Let's grab this one, 5 stars. If you want to zoom any at any point, double tap. No problem, just to check for focus. Nice and super sharp. If we want to zoom all of them, shift click up here to the big head. So shift click, that'll take everything to 100%, as you can see, like so. And if I now hold down my shift key and pan with the pan tool, then it moves all of them at the same time. And I can zoom out, zoom in, pretty much instantaneous build to 100% like so. So you can zoom as well. Steve says, can you sharpness zones on the set? I don't quite know what you mean by that. Can you pick if you mean this, Steve, you can pick a focus point. So if you always want to have a focus point that you can look at, then yes, you can. In terms of having a visual kind of grayscale or something like that, no, that's not possible. Okay, so where were we? Let's blast through the rest of these. So let's have that one, next set, next set. Let's have that one, next set. Let's have that one, next set, next set, next set. Let's get through to the last set of images. Let's grab that nice smiley one, and let's grab that nice smiley one. And you'll notice now we've gone down to 2 images because there wasn't 3. But if I go back, capture one will remember I had 3 in my set, like so. Like so. Okay. So let's just grab this one as well. 5. Okay. So now essentially what we've done is that we've gone through and we've made a general sort of selection, and we could do the same with rear shots, detail shots, and so on. But what we need to be able to do now is see all my final kind of front shots. Can everyone still see Capture One screen? Murray says he can only see the keyboard. I want to make sure you can all see the screen as well. You should be able to. Yes, you can. Murray, okay, great. It's only you, Murray. So I'd exit the webinar and come back in again if you can't see anything else. Okay, so what we've done, if I just hide the viewer for a second, we've got a load of green tag images and some of them have 5 stars. Now we only want to see the 5-star ones. So I could filter down here, which will just toggle on and off to see the filtering. Or what I actually want to do is make myself another smart album, because really at any point we want to be able to see my final selection. So I'm going to go up here and say, make a smart album. And what we need here, we're going to call this final front shots. And you can probably guess what this is going to be, but this is going to be color tag is green, like so. And the rating is equals 5. And all criteria must be matched, not any, but all. So it must be green and it must be 5 stars. And we can say, okay, like so. I can move this to a sensible spot. And now you'll see I've got anything which is green with 5 stars. If you want to save your Smart Album presets, let's say Edit Smart Album, you can see up here that if I save a search preset, that it then pops up here, which we can remake it at any point. So that's one way to accelerate your workflow. But now you see I've got a few images which I only want one of these final front shots. So I can go through and then we can whiz through and think which is the best one. It's probably that one. I would think we could use a set if we wanted to. So let's just grab all of those as our set and then think which one do I like. Now if I want to get rid of one, I just zero it. I just tap 0 because now it doesn't have 5 stars, so it's gone. Then we're down to these 4, so let's get rid of that one. Down to these 2, let's get rid of that one. We kind of want to see a face, so let's get rid of that one. So now we're down to the final front shot of that. So let's pick up these 4 and see which one do we like the most. Don't like that one. Out of these, let's get rid of the funny one. And then out of these 2, she looks pretty fierce there, so let's get rid of that one. So now we've got our final one there. Let's pick up those. So I've got 5 on my set. Don't like that one. So that get rid of that one. Don't like that one. Out of these 3, don't like that one. And let's clear that one. So now I've got my final front and we've got 3 here. So out of these 3, they're all pretty good. Let's get rid of that one though to get down to 1. And out of these 2, let's get rid of that one. So now let's make those thumbnails bigger. We got outfit 1, outfit 2, outfit 3, outfit 4. Easy. But the nice thing is about using smart albums for this and avoiding using filters. Filters are great for quick looks, but this is a permanent collection and it's almost dynamic. So if your fussy client comes back and says, you know what, I didn't actually like that one after all, you can go back to front shots, go to the first image, and then say, actually, I actually prefer this one. And we make that 5 stars, go back to my final front shots, and then we can see it there. But I don't like the client, so let's just... You can imagine I did the same with the rear shot. So there's all our final rears, there's our final details, and there's our final fronts, like so. Although we've got, we need to add, which outfit are we missing? Oh, outfit 1. Final rears. So let's go to rear shots. We'll just do that quick. Let's grab one that we want to have, like so. And let's grab this one. And finally, let's grab, doesn't matter, let's grab this one, like so. So final fronts, 1, 2, 3, 4. Final rears, 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got too many. Let's get rid of that one. See, the really nice thing about, using these smart albums, everything is dynamic. And final detail, we're missing a detail of our very first outfit. So let's go to details. And let's pick, they're all much the same. Obvious one I've used before, the one with the crop. So let's grab that one. So then we've got our final detail shots like so. So final fronts, final rears, final details, job done. All finals, you can probably guess what this is, anything with 5 stars. So we've got front, rear detail, front, rear detail, front, rear detail, front, rear detail. Simple. That's just a smart album. We can look at it, edit smart album. That has rating equals 5. Simple. Very simple. Okay, just check for your questions. Norman has a big catalog going back many years. What's the best practice for using sessions while keeping some form of organization? Rather than have a lengthy discussion, Norman, I would go back to the week before last, and the webinar was called On the Road and Back Home Again, and that dealt specifically with your question for working with sessions and catalogs. So I think that's the best thing. Harold says, how did you limit final to just front shots? By using the smart album criteria? Yeah. So front shots is just green tag, rear is just red, detail is just blue. Final front is green and 5 star. Final rear is red and 5 star. Final detail is blue and 5 star. All finals is just 5 star. Actually quite simple. Steve says, what happens if you move the source file to another location? Will the smart album still follow it? Yes. So if I drag and dropped an image from outfit 1 to outfit 2, it wouldn't actually matter because everything is based on the color tag and star rating. Okay, Milton. Common problem here. Sometimes when I start a new session and import from a card, it puts the images into a capture folder from a previous session. How can I always ensure it goes into the right one? Easy. Go to import to, say reset tool, and it will reset to the actual current session. And we can just switch this to capture folder. But it probably means that what happened at some point, you manually changed it here, and then the import dialog is sticky. So it will always remember your last option. But if we reset the tool, then it only shows us the capture folder and session folder from this particular session. So you've got to do that. Okay. And finally, Carlos is saying, what's the workflow difference between this and the selects folder? Well, we can drag and drop everything to the selects folder, but that's a physical move on disk. So if we drag and drop images, they will go into the selects folder. By using smart albums, it's dynamic, as you've seen. So I don't have to move anything around on disk. It's all virtual organization. Much, much slicker. Okay. Another thing I wanted to point out, if we just, let's go back to front shots. Let's just make these a bit smaller. Another really kind of slick keyboard shortcut is actually moving through collections. So we can obviously use the cursor key over here to move through selections, but with the handy addition of this shortcut, first image and last image, and our cursor keys, we can actually go to the next collection with a shortcut. So I'll show you where it is in the menu. Select previous and next collection, Shift Command up, Shift Command down, or Shift Control if you're on PC. So if I do Shift Command down, I can go to my next collection. I can go to the first image with my shortcut. I can do my culling rating, star tagging, whatever. Go to the next collection, first image, go through and star rate or do sets or whatever. Next collection, first image, go through, next collection, first image, step back through the collections and so on. Without ever having to pick up this, my pen, or somewhere over here, which I never use, a mouse. So you can do everything on the keyboard, which is super speed. Where do you edit the picture? Doesn't matter, Steve. I can edit it here. So let's grab. I can adjust here. I can edit it in whatever folders down here. Makes no difference where I edit. If you're coming from Lightroom, Steve, you might be more used to modal system like library, develop, and so on and so forth. There's no such thing in Capture One. You can do anything at any point. Andy, I would use the selects folder if I had a really simple session. So let's say I went out and did someone's headshot, like just one guy or one girl, then I would simply look at my captures and drag the good ones to the selects folder. But when you have multiple outfits or multiple headshots, it's way easier to do it with Smart Albums. Okie dokie. So the next thing that I want to do is a little sneaky thing. Let's go to Final Front Shots. And let's just look at the first one. And I want to look in the Metadata tab. I can't remember if I did this already. Yes, I did. So you'll see here that each of these, if I just scroll through, they all have in the description front shot. I'll show you how I do that. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because we're going to use that later on when we do some processing. So if I wanted to add a metadata tag, if I wanted to add a metadata tag or the same metadata tag to a batch of images, we do it like this. Select all, go to the metadata entry that we want to edit. So I'm going to just retype this, front shot. I'll spell it slightly differently so that you can see it. And now I want to add this metadata term to all the other images. You see they're all currently selected. So I click on my copy apply button like so. And the first thing I do is I don't want to copy any ratings or other metadata across because that might mess it up. So I'm going to turn that off and I only want to have description with no other metadata terms. Say apply down here. And then that way you'll see every single image has front shot applied like so. You see this one has a copyright, so let's copy that across. So I'm going to say copy. Let's turn that off. And the only thing I want is copyright notification, which is here. Copyright notice, say apply. And then now we've got the same copyright on every single image. And I'm going to use this later on when we do some processing. You'll also see if we go to final rear shots, we've got the same thing, rear shot on each image, like so. If I go to my next collection, why not? We can do that with a shortcut, first image. This says detail. And if I go to my next collection, that's all my final images. And we can see we've got front shot, rear shot, detail, front shot, rear shot, detail, front shot, rear shot, detail, front shot, rear shot, detail. So they all have a metadata tag too. For keywords, can't remember who was asking, you can add keywords with the keyword tool. There's also a webinar for that as well. That was Carlos who was asking. So have a look at the keywording webinar. I'm afraid we don't have time for that today. Okay, so we've got some metadata. And now we're set to all finals. So what we can do now is start to do some clever stuff, really clever stuff with processing. And if you can get your head around what we're going to spend the next 10, 15 minutes on, you can expect pretty precise gains on your workflow export times and the amount of manual work you have to do for heavy lifting in terms of making folders and different process actions and all that kind of stuff. So first of all, let's do something really simple to get your head round the concept. So I'm going to select all. I'm going to turn this back on because when I process, I want it to be on all the images, not just one of them. If ever you get to a point where you're processing and you're only getting one image per time and you've selected a bunch, you've probably turned this off. So turn it back on again. And it refers to this menu entry, edit all selected variants, like so. So let's do something simple. Now, if you haven't used process recipes before, learn how to do it. If you're simply doing file export down here, then this is the slowest, kind of most cumbersome way to do it. It's fine for a quick export, but the whole idea of designing recipes is to be consistent and repeatable and take out the human error. Because when you're tired after a long day shooting, you don't want to forget to export to the wrong size, the wrong location, and so on. So take the silly human out the equation and let automation take over. So we're going to make a new process recipe, and we're going to call this color tag, and you'll see why in a second. And once we've made our new process recipe by hitting plus, we're going to define what it's going to do in this tool, the process recipe tool. So I'm going to just set it to JPEG quick proof so it's nice and fast. This way it means when we export, we're not going to be staring at a progress bar for ages. Now in the File tab, we're going to put something in here. We have a subfolder field. So this tab describes where the image is going to go. By default, it will go and look at the output location tool, which by default will go to the output folder of our current session. So if I tap on this arrow, I can see exactly where it's going to go. Now, Milton, if you're having weird stuff going on with your session on export, you can do the same thing and say reset tool, and that will make sure it resets to the output folder. We can also reset tool here and do the same thing, but double check with the arrow and I can see it's going into Alex's output folder. But what we're going to ask Capture One to do is create us a subfolder automatically. Now I can do this by just typing and it will make a folder with that name, or we can ask Capture One to look at some variable aspect of the image and create a folder. Now our variable aspect for these images is the color tag, for example. They're all 5 stars, so there's no point having them split by that. But oh, just thought the webcam died for a second, but I think we're okay. But the color tag varies. So in here in the subfolder field, we're going to tap this button, and this opens process recipe subfolder token. There's 60 plus in here. You'll probably ever only use 2 or 3 of them. But trust me, somebody somewhere is using one of these more obscure tags. So I'm going to pick up color tag and drop it here like so and say OK. So now Capture One's going to automatically divide up the images based on their color tag. So I'm going to select all, which is Command A on the keyboard or Control A, and I'm going to start processing. So let's just check. I'll just check my output folder is empty. Command A, and we can click the process button here, or at any point we can do Command D, which is file process, like so. So I'm going to say Command D. Let's go to my output folder, and you see it's making me rid of this one. A folder called blue, a folder called green, and a folder called red. So that has my various different images in. So that's all my blues, all the details, and then greens, that's all my fronts, and then reds, that was all the rears, like so. So that's a really simple one. Just to get your head around the idea that this is a variable and it creates a folder for that. Okay, so that'll easily get you started. Let's delete those and do something else. Before we do that, I'll answer a couple of your questions. JPEG Quick Proof is a super rapid export, as you saw. It uses the JPEG that's already embedded in Capture One because when we import or shoot tethered, we create a preview image, so we're just simply using that, so we don't have to process anything. We just copy it out. Sebastian, your question, how is subfolder different here to here? You'll see that at the end, but this subfolder one has a really important extra use. Okay, next. So that was color tag. Now color tag might not be very useful. So if you remember in our output folder, it said blue, red, green. So that doesn't tell us much, or it might not tell someone who isn't you, the photographer, much, like your client. They don't know that you chose blue for detail. But if you remember, we gave our smart album a clever name, which was final front, final rear, final detail. So instead, let's make another process recipe. We're going to have JPEG quick proof, turn this recipe off. We're going to run two at the same time at one point. And this one we're going to call collection name, like so. So in our subfolder now, there's also a token called collection name. Now I know there's a token called collection name, so I can start typing and it shows me there's a token. I can arrow down, press enter on my keyboard, and my token is selected. So now we're going to use collection. Everything else I'm going to leave. So if I go back to, I don't even have to go to this tab. If I select all, Command D to process, I can go to my next collection, Shift Command down, select all, Command D, next collection, select all, Command D, like so, and I think we're out of collections. Yep. So now if we look in the output folder, we've got final detail, final front, and final rear, like so. So that gets round, if you like, the inability in Capture One to rename what the color tags do, but we can use a smart album to do pretty much exactly the same thing, as you can see. So that's collection name, very handy token. If you remember, these images reside in various different folders: Outfit 1, Outfit 2, Outfit 3, Outfit 4. Now it might be handy if Capture One could create in the output folder a folder which is the same name as their current location. So if I want to process a bunch of images, I want them to be sorted automatically into the name of their capture folder, or wherever they reside in the session. So let's make a new recipe, turn this one off. And this has a funny name, the token. It's called session sub path. So let's go and let's choose all finals. So this is every single image which reside in those 4 different folders. So I'm going to select all, and we're going to go to JPEG quick proof, and now our subfolder token is going to be session subpath, like so. So Capture One knows where this raw file belongs, so it will look at the name of that folder and recreate it in the output folder for us. So I'm just going to delete these. And we're going to say select all, and we're going to say Command D to process, and look at what Capture One does. So now we have Outfit 1, Outfit 2, Outfit 3, and Outfit 4, like so. So all nicely divided up. Next one is that now we can use our metadata tag to help us, and we can start to combine different tokens. So let's make a new recipe, turn that one off. This one is going to be session subpath plus description. Did I spell that right? Description, pretty much. So let's go to JPEG quick proof in the file tab. Subfolder, we're going to be session subpath. And now I want another token, but I want to go down another level in the folder tree. So the way I do that is with this, with a backslash. Same for Mac and PC. So now I want to use the token description. So remember that was front shot, rear shot, or whatever. So Capture One will look at the metadata tag and make a folder of that description. If there's nothing in there, it will say empty name, but we were smart enough to use a metadata tag. So did I empty out the output folder? Yes, I did. So now I can say select all, Command D to process, have a look at my output folder, and we've got Outfit 1, detail front shot in capitals, and rear shot. Outfit 1, 2, 3, 4, like so. Super nice. How are we doing for time? And we've got time for a couple of others. Which one shall we do next? Let's do, okay, let's do, so far you've seen everything going, no, I'm going to come back to that later. Okay, going to do a different one. Just so you know, is that also output naming? We can also use tokens here, similar principle. So for example, if your client really didn't care to have whatever the raw file name was, then we can change it here, for example. So what we could do, if I get this right, there's a token called image folder name. So that's the name of the folder which the raw file is sitting in. And then I'm going to rename it with the image destination name. I think that's called. Maybe it wasn't that. Hang on. Image folder name, folder. I'm going to look silly now. I can't remember what the name it was. Was it destination? Destination folder name. There we go. Got there in the end. So if you look at what it's telling me, this one is going to go in a folder called Outfit 1 Front Shot. If we go to this one, it's going to be Outfit 4 Front Shot. I'm leaving the same process recipe here. It's just going to rename everything in quite a clever way. So select all, Command D, and now we've got Outfit 1, and it's actually named Outfit 1 Detail, Outfit 1 Front, Rear Shot, Outfit 1, and so on and so forth. You could argue we don't need these now because the file name is actually describing it for us. But that's a pretty easy, slick way to rename as well. So don't forget, output naming also responds to using tokens in a very similar way. Robert says, so backslash works on both PC and Mac, but forward slash only works on Mac. Actually, in Capture One 10 point, on Mac it used to be forward slash, and PC it was back. But on Capture One 10.2, we cleared up some naming stuff with scripts. But if you like, an undesirable result of that was that forward slash stopped working on Mac. So on 10.2, you've got to use backslash, Robert. I guess the question is when we release a new update of Capture One, if we bring that back again for Mac, but I can't remember what the consensus was. But backslash works just fine, so don't worry about that. Why don't you use the basic tab in the process recipe tab for naming the subfolder? Because you can't, Les. It's only in the file tab for naming the subfolder. Okay, so let's run two process recipes at the same time and show you who was asking, who was that? Just looking at the questions. That was Sebastian saying, why is there also a subfolder here and why is there also a subfolder here? That is a brilliant question and you'll see why. I'm going to change this just back to image name so we're not changing the name as well. So this one, we've got our JPEG quick proof, session subpath and description. I'm going to duplicate this recipe, which is handy. That's up in the subfolder menu here. And this is going to be session subpath and description TIFF file. And this one is going to be JPEG. Let's just rename that JPEG. Because your client might want to have both. They want TIFF for high res and they want JPEG for layout, for example. So this one I'm going to change to TIFF. Just 8-bit will do. And this one is JPEG, as you can see. The file tab is doing exactly the same thing. Now, Sebastian, pay attention. Now we're going to put in here recipe format as a token. Because what the flow is that Capture One, when we run a process recipe, its first stop is root folder. It says, okay, look in output location. What do I need to do first? It will go to output location and say, okay, I need to first create the folder based on the recipe format. Now I will go back to my process recipe and continue on the flow with whatever tokens are here. And I'm going to run both these process recipes at the same time. So is my output folder empty? No, let's delete everything out of there. And I'm going to select all, got 2 process recipes running, and say process. And now we see what's going to happen. So hopefully that explains it, Sebastian. We've got all our JPEGs here, and then we've got all our TIFFs here, like so. So JPEG outfit 1, front shot, rear shot, and detail, and TIFF outfit 1, and then the TIFFs are coming in. Obviously, they take a bit longer to do, but that's a boatload of folders all created automatically. Gus says, can you store the original file name in metadata easily when you rename the output folder? Depends what you class as easy, Gus. I know a colleague of mine wrote an Apple script which did that. So if you know anything about Apple script, you can write your own script and it'll do that. It is possible. I'm not an Apple script expert myself, but you could do that. I don't actually know if it's in the metadata by default. Don't think it. File name, no, because that would change. So, but there is a way to do it via Apple script, but I'm afraid I am not the oracle on that, Gus. Okay. If you want to know a bit more about this, because we're running out of time, there is actually a whole webinar just on process recipes where we go into things like job name and subname. So if you thought having 2 subfolders was interesting, wait till you hear what you can do with subname. But have a look at that in the previous webinar, all about process recipes. There's one last one that I'm going to show you just to show you the versatility of process recipes, and another feature is that so far you've seen everything go into the output folder, but a recipe can also have its own destination as well. So let's make another recipe, and I'm going to call this Dropbox. Let's deactivate those. This definitely needs to be JPEG quick proof, and I'm going to choose a bigger collection of, say, outfit 3. So that's 60 odd images. Let's select all of those. Actually, let's bring one up. Let's do one last thing. We're going to do change. See, in root folder for this one, we can go direct to a different folder. So I'm going to choose I'm just going to delete the contents of my Dropbox because it's got stuff from this morning in there. So let's get rid of that. And I'm going to say this process recipe goes straight to Dropbox. And we say, OK. And subfolder, I can automate this too. And what I could actually use is the name of my session. So that is called a document name. Sounds weird, but a session is a document, a catalog is a document. So I'm going to use that as my, I'm going to use that as my token. I'm also going to throw on a watermark in terms of text. And also this can be tokenized too. So let's have, because our client is a bit blind, let's have the image name as a watermark as well. Now it's a bit big, so let's change the system font to something a bit more crazy, and let's have it in black so we can actually read it as well. Oh, this one, black. That's better. Close that down, have full opacity, and let's bring this up to the top. Actually, it's still a bit big. Let's change this to 36. There we go. Full opacity, and let's go something like that. So now this watermark is dynamic. So as I move through the images, you can see my watermark changes as well. And we could add other tokens like copyright notice, or we could add our metadata description, even though it's pretty obvious what it is. And in between tokens, we could put an underscore just to divide that up a bit as well. So we're going to tokenize that as well. And we've got JPEG quick proof. It's going to my Dropbox. Tap this to check. So it's going to Dropbox. We're going to use document name as a subfolder, and we're going to do watermarks at the same time. So this is a pretty big recipe. So select all. Command D to process. Processing starts. Let's see what's happening in the Dropbox. So Alex Fitness full 2, like so. And now it's going through and blasting through all those various different JPEGs like so. Paul says, why does a question mark appear in the thumbnail? This happens when I've moved or trashed duplicate folders. Oh, probably, Paul, it means you might have trashed. Sometimes it can happen if you've trashed out in the Finder, and for whatever reason, Capture One hasn't caught up with that. But you shouldn't see that really. If you see it, just make a note and make a support case, because that shouldn't really happen. Everything should be monitored nicely, especially if you're keeping everything within the session structure as well. So that's our output done. And really the last thing I want to show you before we have to go is, let's say your client has gone through and they've picked out a bunch of images from here, and you need to select them out and process them from a big collection. You might end up with an email or a list or a document or an Excel or something like that which has a few file names. So I've got one I prepared earlier, which is this, which is just a basic text file of some of the file names in this collection. And our client is a bit of an idiot because some of them has the full file names, some of them they've just done the number. Doesn't matter though. If I select all these, Command C to copy, go back to Capture One, edit, select by, file name list. Capture One pops open a big window here which I can copy paste those file names in. The delimiter means that every new line has a new file name, and I'm ignoring the file extension because these are JPEGs and my raw files are Nikon NEVs, but we want to ignore that. And now if I say, okay, Capture One selected 16 of these images, before I touch anything else, I'm going to right click and say create albums from my selection. So the current selection, let's call this client selects. Going to say select the collection after it's created and add the selected images. I don't know why you wouldn't check this, but add selected images, and let's say okay. Boom, straight away there's our selection. And if we go back to the library tab, you'll see there's my collection of images, and with everything like so. That is way faster than laboriously going through in a search bar and typing in all these various different file numbers manually, moving them somewhere and so on. That could easily save you an hour if you had 800 images to select through. The very, very last thing, which is kind of the icing on the cake of all of this, is that let's say you settle on some kind of workflow here. It doesn't have to be mine. Could be an adaptation or something completely different. But making all of these folders, of course, has a time penalty. Making the various capture folders, for example, has a time penalty. Creating your various different naming conventions, if you're shooting tethered, also has a time penalty. But what we can also do is say File, Save as Template. So this is going to save pretty much everything in this session. If you want Capture One to create folders for you, make sure you've added them as session favorites. So let's call this Ultimate Session Workflow. Put a yeehaw on the end of that because this is really a nice thing to do. And next time we want to recreate what we've done here. Let's close this one down. I'm going to say New Session or File New Session. Ignore everything here and say pick a template. Let's say we're just doing another fashion shoot. And we say, okay, takes a millisecond longer to create, but you can see all my smart albums are made. All of my session favorites are ready to go. And if we right click here, you'll see that we've got all my capture folders also ready to go as well. And if we defined one as a capture folder, that would also be remembered. Naming convention would be remembered as well. Does it include process recipes? Well, process recipes are not session or catalog specific, so your recipes will always be here. So yes, there is a bit of a time penalty in setting this stuff up, but once you have set it up, then you're going to save yourself a significant amount of time in terms of organization, processing, culling, rating, and so on. And if you can get to grips with a few basic keyboard shortcuts, remember, this is the logic keyboard in Capture One itself. We actually have a shortcut set specifically for logic. There's nothing to stop you using this shortcut set. Just the benefit of logic is that it's printed on the keys. So I can remember stuff like color tags easy, star rating easily. There's some things along the top for resetting counters, especially good for shooting tethered. I can't remember those off the top of my head. And we've got various other things for adding layers when we're doing local adjustments, clearing layers, inverting, and so on. If you're thirsty for more, there's nothing on next week. I'm traveling. I'll be in New York for the PPE show. So if you're around, come and say hi. But after that, I'm back with my colleague Alex, and we're going to go through and color grade, or rather Alex is, because he's the clever guy with color. We're going to go through and color grade 5 different images using color balance tool, color editor, you name it, anything color wise, we'll try and squeeze it in. So come back on November 2nd for that particular webinar. So thanks for your attention today, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope to see you again in the future. Take care.